And this is an endless road that we're on this road trip. And so there's no end that's in sight here. So when this is the last session, so we may not get to the end, but I think it's been a good start, and that everything is really controlled by what's happening these days, and at such a speed with this pandemic and how we're forced into changes. It's even more important. This is what we've covered so far, the check marks, and the last four we'll cover today. And we could just as soon have a lot more. Everything you think about is involved with data, big data, and the changes that are occurring. And is there anybody that has anything they want to add to that, to the discussions we've already had? Anything that's on your mind? It depends upon how this works out. We should have time at the end to discuss anything else that we haven't covered, or that can be covered, sort of in the future. There's only one topic that I wanted to add to what's been done, and that was on education. And I'd like to start off with your participation. And the question is, what will OLLI be like 5 years from now? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think OLLI will be totally hybrid in those classes, discussion classes at least. Someone said in one other class, someone who moved to San Diego is now in OLLI again. She loved it and she missed it.
Well, will there be individual OLLIs, or will we be able to have an OLLI membership? And if there's a class that's given at UCLA or San Diego, we'll be able to pull in on that. If I were giving a class like this and there was somebody on education who had a lot to give to us, and they could be in New York or South America or Europe, we'll pull them right in. I mean,
yeah, that's a good point. But we have the best classes, including yours.
Yeah, well.
Claire has her hand up.
Well, I just want to say people need people. And I think we'll always have where we have social contact, even though we've always had things that have been far away and classes, online and stuff. But I think people need people.
Well, I think you're right. But this serves one purpose, It was interesting talking to somebody about, they were talking about books and that who controls the textbooks for schools and stuff. And I think they missed the entire thing, because in the future, there won't be textbooks. You'll be able to pull chapters out of anything you want. I mean, it's going to be universal. The translations, you can pull up a book that's been written in French and you'll be able to read it. Or print it out on your printer. So those are things we can't foresee. All we can really do is try and see how the things we have today are going to get a little bit better. But the real changes and innovations on everything are the things.
Eugene, so publishers will disappear?
Pardon me?
Publishers will disappear?
They'll probably be in a different venue or something. I have a son-in-law who was in music, and he had a very small label and his type of music and all that sort of stuff. And that has all vanished. And so he had to go into different ways. In other words, no longer do people sell albums and then they get a residual on that. Now they sell their songs at $1.50 on iTunes. So there's an industry that has changed completely. And a lot of the things that we've talked about here are very intermixed, and one thing's going to affect another. And almost all of these industries, if you want to call them that, will not be the same. I don't think will be the same, maybe even 5 years from now, but certainly 10 years from now.
Hey, folks, if you have questions, please use the little blue hand symbol at the bottom of your participants list. And then we have a question from Sue.
It's not a question. I just wanted to make a comment about what Ollie might look like in 5 years, and and specifically about all the Ollies kind of blending together. That would probably take a national at the Ollie level would have to come up with some sort of arrangement, because yes, we could tap into an expert in New York on a one-on-one basis, but my understanding is most of the other Ollie classes, you sign up for us and you pay a fee for a specific class. That Fullerton is very unusual in that you pay a flat fee for everything. And I can't quite see that UCLA would let one of our Ollie people take one of their classes where they have to pay a fee to get into that specific class. And so something would have to be worked out at the national or international, if Ollie's international level.
And I have no doubt that it will be. Maybe you'll buy an Ollie card for a certain amount, which will let you audit all these others. And when you audit a UCLA class, you can listen to it but not participate in it.
Yeah.
Who knows what it's going to end
But
up.
I mean, they would have to come up with something at the
Right.
Ollie level. I don't think it can just be at the Fullerton, Fullerton and UCI level, or whatever. I think it would have to be set.
Well,
Policy would
actually,
have to be set up high.
I'm not sure. I think one fee might cover everything as long as it's not a regular UCLA extension class. I think their Ollie wouldn't mind anyone tapping in.
Okay, well, let's move on, because I don't want to really spend too much time on one thing.
Do you want Sam to say something first, or?
Go ahead, Sam.
Oh, quickly, yeah. I'm glad it's going hybrid, because I really think 25 years later, when I'm 95, I'd still like to be in an Ollie class, and this makes it possible. So I'm really happy for that.
I think they're taking the first little step. Next week is the last week of our summer session, and they're opening up I don't know about all the classes, but a lot of classes to the general public. And so if the public can be informed of this,
Really?
they can see what our classes are like. And my personal feeling is that these should be used as recruiting tools.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's why they're doing it.
And so, but even during the year, for you, 2 classes, 3 classes, whatever it happens to be, let's hook them in. Anyway, that's all to be determined. The first topic today is religion and what it's going to be like in the future. Will there be a physical building like that? Or will you stay at home and stream, which is available in some churches and things now for people who can't get out or people are away. You can have different events, religious events in the church, and your family can be far away and they can tap in on it. So it's coming, and it's going to be here soon. And what that effect will have on, if some of these other big churches close down and you don't need big parking lots, is that going to be a change in everything? Will you need the large congregations, or maybe it work the other way? Will you need the small community congregations for social, personal, and local needs? And yet, if there's a speaker far away that you can't get to, you can tune in on that, or you can sample other religions. Things are going to change, and the same way they're literally changing now, in the sense that secularism seems to be on the rise. And when they poll people, one of the top boxes they check off are no religion. And in some polls, it's the largest box. And you have to delve deep into that, because when people are questioned about it, they say that they're spiritual but not religious. So what does that mean? And other people who identify themselves as agnostics, which sort of says, yeah, I believe in God, but I don't know what kind or what thing. One thing we do know is that disasters bring an increase in religion. You know, there's a lot of God in the foxholes and things like that.
Okay, Gene, I have a couple of questions.
This,
Yeah, Pizza Puto has his hand up, and then Carolyn.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think everybody should mute their microphones when they're not talking. The second thing is, we're looking at this situation that we're in today as a permanent situation. This is not permanent. This is temporary. We're going to have churches, we're going to have meetings, we're going to have concerts, we're going to have all this stuff in the future. But this COVID thing is going to be solved someday. It may not be tomorrow. It may take a year. It may take 2 years. But that doesn't mean it's permanent. So I think that the people who are believing that the whole thing is going to change radically. I mean, it already has changed radically. But I think back to normal would be a good situation in the future.
Well, I'm not sure we're ever going to go back to a normal. I agree with you that things are not going to go on at this pace, but a lot of the things that people are forced into, in the sense of how they shop, how they go places, all these other things that they're sampling, people who would not have bought on Amazon before, and they still will go to their stores, but they can buy at Amazon when they want. If they want to run out of the house to buy eye drops, they can buy it from Amazon and get it delivered in a great big box in a couple days. I
agree that these things are convenient, but they are to be, you can select what you want to use it for. You have a choice now.
Well,
like we have a choice with the Zoom meetings at OLLI.
Well, with religion, you'll get your choice too. Will there be affiliations? We all pray the same God in different ways, and there's many different kinds of things out there now that people take advantage of and do. The whole idea of it, and I have no idea, Pete, where it's going to go, but it's a thought to have, and hopefully we, the people, will get to shape this rather than have somebody shape it for us.
Hey, Gene, Carolyn's been patiently waiting to
Okay.
comment.
No, I'm patient. I've got two brief comments to make. I'm a 12-stepper, and we say take what you like and leave the rest. And I think Zoom has some terrific things. Here's what happened in my church. Okay, we do a Zoom church service. Then at the end of that church service, Zoom arbitrarily separates us and puts us into groups. So there are groups. I love it. There's people that, in church, you sort of stick to your friends, and after church, you have coffee with your friends. And man, I'm getting to meet people and talk to people that I've just never shared a coffee break with. And it's been terrific. And one other brief comment I want to make in terms of the people checking off the box, spiritual, but not religious, not in a particular church. And I tell you, two big names, Rob Bell, evangelical, and Father Richard Rohr, a Franciscan priest, both teach a message that is more spiritual than boxed in to a particular religion. And these guys sell books. They are well known in their areas. And here's the quote from the Bible that pretty much, to me, sums it up. No one has seen God, but if you love one another, God lives in you, and in you, his love is made complete. Now, if that doesn't tell you that anybody on the earth, if he is a loving soul and a giving soul, that he's not on God's team, I don't know what else would. Thank you.
Well, that's, I guess that's the question. Will organized religion be the same? These people that you're talking about and have been available in books and things like this, now their availability on the internet and with with Zoom meetings, they will reach a lot more people. And if they have something to say that's accepted, they will become a much bigger area.
Well, Eugene, what's
That type of
interesting,
thing, you know, I'm not sure that we could sit down and all agree as to what we want from God. And, you know, we want an omnipotent, super intelligent person. What if the AI that we keep talking about and learning, it's a learning machine, and what if it develops a soul and qualities of a deity? Is the future
yeah,
deism, a new religion that will be run by machines?
yeah, man created his own God in his image or whatever. But mind you, Rob Bell was kicked out of the evangelical church that he had created and was one of these big churches. Richard Rohr has been protected as a priest by his Franciscan order, or the Pope would have kicked him out. So these people who spread and become spiritual instead of boxed in religion, they face their own.
They do.
Yep.
And it's how they're accepted. A lot, I think, have gone on to bigger things. But I guess what I'm talking about is wherever that new church is, will there be a God pod at every pew? And will we all be able to have FaceTime with God? These are strange things, but who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Thank you.
In that vein, here's a short video, and I think it will talk to some of the things that we've just talked about.
Alternative churches have sprung up in the hundreds across the US in recent years as institutionalized religion sees continuous decline.
The landscape of American religion is undergoing massive changes. People are hungering for that kind of authentic, co-creative experience.
So what will church become in the 21st century? New Hampshire, America's least religious state.
When we're in a regular church, an indoor church, a wall church, as I sometimes call it, we are literally walled off from the rest of creation. That, I think, has contributed to the human ability to destroy the natural world around us. Church of the Woods is a church where the land itself is the sacred space.
Yeah, yours too.
This is just another reminder of what nature really needs from me in terms of being there to connect with. So I was born and brought up, baptized in the Catholic Church and attended Catholic Church. But things started to kind of fall apart for me as time went on. I felt less and less connected.
Monica and some other Church of the Woods members have stopped going to traditional churches. And they're not alone.
Religion definitely has a brand problem. This is a conservative estimate. 3,500 churches close every year in the United States.
It's viewed by many, many people as being judgmental, not necessarily inclusive enough, not as well in touch with the environmental or ecological concerns as it should be. Also, I think people can find answers to some of their most important existential questions in other ways.
Some of them are going to maker spaces or fitness communities like CrossFit, where there's a great sense of community and accountability. There's a real sense of investing in your personal transformation. And so this boundary of what is religious, what is secular, is really challenged by the way young people are living a lot of their lives.
And so, friends, what is this space going to be for us this evening? Learning. Learning. Non-judgmental, always. Challenging. Challenging. Hopefully challenging. Wait till you hear the sermon.
A potluck dinner / spiritual discussion, Simple Church is one of the new churches that brings religion into secular spaces.
All the Bibles out. Everybody's in.
The group meets on Tuesdays instead of Sundays.
a lot of our folks are what we call nuns and duns. So people who didn't grow up with a specific faith and don't necessarily claim a specific faith. And then other folks who did, but now they're done with it.
Cafe, not the pews. There's no memories from the past that are making it harder to get here. No one here has batted an eyelash if I say I have a chronic illness, so I can't show up some weeks, or I'm not straight.
Like your most prized possession in the whole world. Like who would that go to? And what's their relationship to you?
It's easier to build community when you're at a dinner party rather than sitting in a pew. And so instead of following a step-by-step liturgy that's laid out for you in a bulletin, you're just at a dinner party and you're invited to have conversation with the people around you. And so why not go into cafes? And also it's very cost effective.
But is alternative church even church? This is Laundryland, a national network that offers low-income people free laundry, free food, and an opportunity to gather and pray.
There you go, my dear. Thank you.
The Worcester branch meets monthly, and for most people here, the initial draw is financial. But for some, God does show up.
The love of God should be demonstrated in a very practical way. So as they're paying for the laundry, they're really meeting the practical needs of people.
When the machines are going, there's enough white noise that you can have very private conversations in a public space. And I would hear about people's lives and begin to build some connections. So anyone we need to pray for tonight? The homeless.
There's also sometimes a perspective that thinks that these new emergent communities are somehow watering down the tradition, that it's like Christianity light or religion light. When actually what we've seen is that often they're really creative at taking something very old and very traditional and remixing it with something very contemporary.
The Bible is filled with stories of Jesus in particular going for his prayer time alone into wild places. So in many ways, what we're doing is going back to the earliest traditions of the church, but it's been forgotten.
Yeah, religions are a social thing. I mean, I don't care which religion you're in. It's the gathering of people together for prayer and meditation, or whatever you think with it. But it's a social thing. That's being circulated right now, I believe, with COVID-19 because of the anti-social aspect of it, of the disease. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think the older people will still come back because they're used to it. That's part of their being. But the younger generation may not. It's something to consider, that the traditional gatherings in churches and synagogues and mosques and every place else, these are a social thing, because people getting together doing something means community. It means you're part of something. With Zoom and other things, you're part of something, but you're separate with something. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I give you all a chance to eat. As much as religion is going to change, will food, the way we eat, the way we get it, is it all going to be different? Will you have all your vegetables delivered to your house and frozen meals? Will there be no more cooking? Will it just be warming? Will there be vertical farms? Will if we don't need big parking structures and office buildings, will those turn into vertical farms where each floor can be climate controlled and You won't have to get your vegetables from Chile. You can get it from your own backyard practically. Will they be genetically forming food and the crops, get rid of the pests and do other things? You can have strawberries the size of an apple. You know, they'll be able to tag food as it goes through the chain and find out where it's come from to try and abort diseases and things. There's gadgets out now, and they'll be much better in the future, which you can use either a separate scanner or your phone to point at an apple, and it will tell you what the nutritional value of that apple is. It will also tell you if the watermelon is ripe. You'll be able to, your own body will tell you what you need, and it will convert it into vitamins and minerals that you can either get in food or maybe in a pill. There's something called a tuniscope out now, where people who buy fish to put into sushi and things like that need a very fresh fish. And so they can point these things at the fish and tell and then they use the tuna for an example, and they can tell the value of it and the freshness of it and everything else. So if you as an individual need a special kind of diet, you'll get it. It'll deliver that right to your house. Some of this we've seen change now, especially the delivery of foods and vegetables. Who knows what's coming later. And you know, anything else that you'd like to say? You'll be able to tell how much sugar is in something or fat or anything else.
I think what we're discussing with all the options is, you know, is available for us who are middle class or more affluent. But I'm not so sure for the people that don't eat currently a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and eat a lot of drive-through, takeout, fast food, processed foods. I'm not sure if they will have the financial, at this time, you know, unless if the economy changes or whatever, would have the financial capacity to order fruits and vegetables to be delivered to their house every, you know, 2 days or whatever. You know, we can do it, but I'm not sure that people who are poor are going to have that that opportunity or that availability.
You know, now there's a lot of food banks and things around, but as I view them, they get a lot of donated food, and they'll take anything they can get. And so the food that's distributed, it may not always be the most nutritious for those people. A tremendous amount of our children, and when I say our, I mean in the general population, are fed at schools because they come from families that can't. And I think that way tries to be a little bit more nutritious. It may not always be the food that the child likes, but there's a lot of different real problems that are on our future that as soon as we solve one or think we solved one, another one's gonna poke up. Anything else on food?
Yeah, Elaine has her hand up.
Great, thank you, Don. It seems to me that there's a lot of commonality in this topic as well as the last, in that it appears that we're talking about lots of choices, but actually many, many choices have been out there for a long time. It's just that almost forever when you talk about religion in particular. It's just that without media and such, we didn't know what was 100 miles from us, and then we didn't know what was 500 miles, and certainly not 1,000, and certainly not around the world. And now we know a whole lot more about that, and somehow or other we seem to think that's interesting and maybe we should consider it. Or that we show how open-minded we're being, put it that way, because we would consider it. most people are not open-minded at all when it comes to this kind of thing. They
There's
are.
cultural foods also.
Say again?
There's cultural things and feel-good foods.
Exactly.
That enter all this stuff.
And many times, and food is certainly one of those. I'm very aware of how much of a social, imagine a get-together without food. That's, if you talk to people that have had a strong family situation in their life, where they had a family, that almost all of the memories are around this time that they got together and ate food. So I think getting food delivered, well, you can do that too. At Thanksgiving and whatever holiday, you can get, I don't know, Polly's Pies, and just about every good-sized restaurant. The Summit House does it. They will make you a whole dinner for X number of people. You just come and pick it up and take it home and serve it. So where we get it from almost doesn't matter. It's the ability to be able to have it. And when you were showing the videos about and talking about the religions, you will notice that seemed almost strange to me, anyway, if anybody else noticed that, because that wasn't current. Those people were getting together and eating. They were in a small space in the laundromat. I wouldn't feel safe in those places. Also, people then insist on, oh, I must go to church. That's really, really important to me. Is it that? Then what about the people that, oh, I must go to the bar because that's where I spend my time every night or every other night because that's where my friends are. That's where the people are that I can be social with. So you have to understand what it is that we're missing.
Maybe one size doesn't fit all, and the normal will be that everybody has a choice as
well,
to
unfortunately, it seems as though generally speaking in society, the more choices we get, the less choices we get.
That's true too. Any other discussion on it?
Yeah, 3 hands up. Pete's next. Pete?
Yeah, I think we have a memory. I grew up in a little town just on the west side of Chicago called Melrose Park. And in that town, we had my mom, which raised a family and stuff like that. My dad worked, but my mom didn't drive. She didn't go out to fast food restaurants because there weren't any fast food restaurants. She shopped with the guys that came around. The vegetable man came around. He had an old school bus. He had it fitted out with shelves inside, and you could shop the fresh fruits and vegetables right there. We had the Lupini man. He came around with nuts and fresh things like that. We had the rag man. He came around, collected rags. I mean, we had all these things that came around the neighborhood. They were available then. I'm talking, what, 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And those things were available then. They went out of fashion now because, now we have supermarkets. We didn't have a supermarket then. Our first supermarket was the Bonnie B. That was something that came in all of a sudden, like in the 50s. But
what is the normal for you? What is the old normal you want to go back to?
Well, I don't necessarily want to go back to the old normal, but those things can be ahead today. We could still have the vegetable guy come down your neighborhood with a little truck. He can buy out of his truck. I mean, you don't have to have 15 people in there. It's 1 or 2. Wear a face mask. Keep your distance. Pay your money. Take your broccoli and go home.
We're going to talk a little bit about financial services. Services that most of us in one way or another take advantage of now. Probably all in different ways, both banking and investments. You can get all the charts and advice you want on your investments now. Have we years ago when credit cards first came out, They said that eventually it will be a cashless society. And we reached that point. Do you have cash in your wallet? Are you happy with this? How do you get your cash now? How many of you go to a bank, or do you bank in an ATM or online? You know, when I say money to you, what does your mind, what's in the vision of your mind? Do you see dollar signs? Do you see stacks of cash, or lots of coins or stocks or whatever else? You probably see some of that. What you really should see are ones and zeros, because that's data. There really isn't money as you see it anymore. When Social Security sends you your Social Security check, they don't send money, they send you ones and zeros. And when your credit card tells your bank to do this or do that, it's all on data. And what will be the banknote of the future? It used to be backed by gold, and they took that away. Now your ability to buy things is in a little piece of plastic. And it creates all kinds of problems there too. You know, the new ways of buying something in the store, walking out of the store and having it charged to your bank account before you even hit the sidewalk is a reality. Maybe not widespread yet, but it's a reality. We can transfer money all over the world quickly. You know, when people invest in stocks, especially the day traders, they're investing on getting up to the second, milliseconds of the market, because they make money when something changes, and they're putting a lot of money in, and if it changes just a half a point or half of this, and so there are all kinds of things that are happening much faster. So will there be a need for cash or coins, or will that just be a thing of the past that will not be in our normal?
Jean Carolyn has her hand up.
Absolutely not. There will not be money. I believe that when we walk around, or when we walk into a store, even before we get to the store, they know who we are, and we're totally identified. Thank you.
You know, how it affects different things. A lot of people carry their phones in their back pocket. And so when we don't need wallets anymore, they can make those pockets just to fit your phone. And so everything's gonna change. I do away, you know, if I don't have a key to my car and a need for something else, they can do away with all my pockets.
Well, Eugene, I think we're all gonna have a chip.
No, that could be. Charge up the chip. You know, when you start thinking of these things and how many of them are there now, and how automation has done things. One thing that sort of comes to my mind is you used to go to the car wash, and you take the car in, and they take it away from you, they vacuum it, and they do all this, they put it away, and they do the whole thing. And now, and it would cost so much to do, and then you tip the guy who dried it off. Now I can drive into a thing on my neighborhood, put a card into the coin thing, and it takes, I think it's $5. I stay in the car. I traverse through the car wash. Now, if I'm in a good mood or able to, I can dry it or vacuum it, or else I just drive it home. Look at all the people that lost their jobs. Look at all the basically kids or young people who washed cars for a long time. And the car wash that I used to go to is just a great big empty lot now. So
Elaine has her hand up.
All these things are changing. Go ahead.
Elaine?
I'm one of those people that really don't use cash a lot, and I really embraced being able to just use a card, like at the grocery store, wherever. wherever I'm shopping, and I just whip out the card and there you go. I don't have to worry about, am I carrying enough cash? Do I have the checkbook with me? All of those old things. And then you get a bill and you pay it off every month and boom, it's just cut down. You've got a permanent record for your taxes, whatever you want to do there. It makes life so much easier. But if I look at it, or did, I thought, I'm not sure that if I would have known how much I had to give up in return for using that, I didn't look far enough ahead. A loss of privacy, that feeling that when you go on the internet, they know what to show you because they think they know who you are. And so much of that information comes from whatever you buy at the store. If you ever notice when you go to a store and on your receipt are printed a bunch of coupons, and I'm sure everybody notices that those are not the same on everybody's receipt. They are tailor-made to you, to things that you've bought in the past. And so, I mean, they're operating on that all the time, plus the information goes. It's funny, we're very concerned about how much information the government has on us, but we don't seem to be particularly concerned on how much advertisers and corporations and how much they know about us.
Now, has the fact that we don't have cash in our wallets anymore, does that alter our buying? It used to be you'd look at something and it would be $20 and you don't, I only have it tens and you wouldn't buy it. Do you even look at the prices in the same way because you can just put a piece of plastic in and it's going to be charged? People spend.
Well, for me, you see, that's not really a big question because people that know me will tell you how very cheap I am. I always want to look at the price tag.
Well, on the pandemic, Gene, has had a major,
attest to that.
The pandemic has had a major impact on the distribution of cash. It's dirty money, and people don't want merchants don't want to take money. They'd much rather take a credit card. It's a lot safer.
Well, it's better for them, and you know, the credit card. I mean, this country or our economy is built on credit. If it was really a cash society, it would be much different. In this session is really communications, and in this picture, we're showing people at a corner. There's about 10 or 11 people, and how many devices do you see? I see lots. I see a phone. I see a watch. I see an iPad. All sorts of things. Maybe the cat down in that corner even has a chip in it, so there won't be any more lost cats. What don't you see in that picture?
Anybody talking to each other.
That's right. Nobody talking to each other.
Exactly right.
And it's just strange. It's that you see that, and yet you can go on many corners and see that now. Whoops, I went back. And anyway, that is a picture I wanted to show you as we talk about communications. And when I was a kid, this was the communications. We had 2 tin cans and a string, but that's not a lot different than the way we all grew up with telephones. We were all connected to people via a telephone, a line, a direct line. And down here with the birds sitting on that telephone line, and the birds off to the right, and it has, in case you can't read it, it says he's got Wi-Fi. So his is wireless. So what's going to happen to the birds as we get rid of all these landlines and go on? And that's the way communication. Is this the new normal? You know, with the cameras up here and your phones or your pads or whatever else and the internet, you're connected to even on that corner, you're connected to everybody and everything in the world.
All
And your
except for
bank.
the dog and the cat.
Well, the cat, they've got their own thing. And
Well,
that cat happens to have a litter that all have the little sensors placed in them. So she knows where all of her cats are.
well, yeah, you're connected to everything, but including the government, like in China.
That's right. It just makes things interesting because we've all gone through downtown or someplace and people waiting for a bus, and you see them all lined up like this person along the line, all looking at their phones. We talk about no interaction and no social things. They don't even notice the people on either side of them.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I got to expand my picture.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about communications. The big thing, of course, is with the speed. We don't necessarily have greater communications, but we have a much faster communications. We went from here to here in maybe thousands of years and more thousands, and now we're going at a rapid space. This may have taken 1 million years to get to. And from here to where we are today may have taken maybe 6 months in the way from the pandemic.
Is the guy next to the guy in the computer, is he holding a jackhammer? What's he holding?
That's what it looks like. Actually, you have to understand that I used to be a dentist, and I just looked at that as a dental tool.
No, that's what it feels like.
Thanks. Anyway, now all of that is now in this little gadget down here that's called a phone, but that's incidental. It's really a computer. It's a whatever you want to call it, with a phone attached. Some people use it as a camera with a phone attached. Are we here, with the telepathy? Who knows where we'll get there. So the technology is moving along very quickly and being adapted and accepted fairly quickly. People who I thought would never do any technology break out iPads and phone things all the time. But now that we have new platforms and new ways to communicate and new ways to advertise and new ways to do everything else, who is in charge of the content? Now, this is where it was brought up earlier at the start of this, the meeting they had yesterday, where they had these 4 great big powerful people in the technology industry, and they were yelling at them for doing things or not doing things, and who really is in charge and who should be in charge, and how much freedom do we have in disseminating information, true information, disinformation, about a lot of things. And I know once we talk about this today, you get into politics and things, and I don't want to do that. And so there's plenty of commercials, whether people will accept the vaccine even when it is produced, people who have various parts and talk about climate change, some of which are valid points, and others are just really far out there. There are people who don't accept even history, such as the Holocaust or things like this. And free speech has emanated into freedom to say anything you want. And is that what we really meant by free speech? It didn't matter when you got up on a platform in a street and said anything you wanted, and there was only 25 people around to listen to you. But now that same person can get up on a platform or sit in his garage and have a million things go if it goes viral, and if he's saying something that people want to accept. So do we as a general public have any right to expect that communications be valid? That you can have misinformation, but not disinformation. You know, and you see it today repeatedly, and something you see over and over again begins to sink in, and you accept it more. You know, it's the same thing again. It's taking the time to do that, and I, you know, I say this all the time, but I don't do the same. We all have our biases, and we listen to the stations that we think are giving us not the only truth, but the best truth as we know it, and we want to accept in our little echo chamber. These are things that have come about, and with all of the good things, you know, Facebook was started by Zuckerberg, I think when he was at Harvard, and it was just to communicate between other students. And it's evolved now into something all over the world doing all kinds of things. And he has no experience or anything else in running something, you know, that vast and that big. And I didn't read the transcripts from yesterday, but I doubt if there were any answers. And I, for one, don't really want the government to step in and say what they want. We have different views in the government too. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. All I know is that every time I think about it, I think of more problems.
Well, I can say that I think you're exactly right. The question is, who controls it? Who is the one that decides what's the right thing? Me too. I've got the answers. Just ask me. And I thought it was, even the government doesn't know. And it's like almost every other, pretty much every industry. Somehow or other, we expect the industry to police itself. You know, we really don't have people that go, or rarely, go to meatpacking plants and check them and see what they're doing. They have, within the plant, they have their own people that are supposed to go around, are supposed to be, you know, have this checklist and go through and do a fair check and report on themselves. And that's true in every industry. You know, the tragedy in the Gulf with the oil company, that was supposedly because their people weren't watching carefully and truthfully enough as to the fact that they weren't doing that safely.
What's the goal of a company?
Yeah, who do we find in the general population, let alone in politicians, who would know how to tell, for example, Facebook, how they should do their thing? He supposedly is doing something, but as soon as you listen to the questions that the Congress people were, you found out right away, or you figured out that the Republicans wanted one thing and the Democrats wanted something else. So if we can't even get together on that of what we expect from them, I don't know how we can expect them to do better. And I know that I am not somebody that could tell them how to do it. The best I can do is to stay away from it and not trust it, and because just not be involved in it.
You get back to who are we gonna trust? Do you have any faith in what any industry would do when the bottom line of an industry, as far as I'm concerned, is really the profit margin?
That's
and when things are done, you know, the way they got the smokers thing down was they finally, the smoker industry said no, smoking wasn't bad for you and all the rest. And they found out that people who worked for the smoking industry had told them how bad nicotine was and things like this. You know, were they dumb to keep those memos? I don't know. But the point is that a good person working in a firm can do good things, and that doesn't necessarily mean that firm or that industry is going to follow it. They do what's in quotes their best interest, or what they evaluate as their best interest.
And their stockholders' best interest.
Well, that's, yeah, right. And so, you know, I'm sure some people say, well, you know, the old thing is, what harm will it do? Well, it does a lot of harm. And you know, many of us have turned very cynical because none of us really have a person that we can totally believe. And sometimes this is even your friends or your family. You know, you don't know where they're getting their information and how and what they're looking for. And, you know, things even in this country, people aren't even aware or not enough to do something until it affects them and their pocketbook. And you can see this all the time. This doesn't amount to everybody. There certainly are a vast amount of good people who would try and do good. And I think that's turned up in this pandemic. Getting back to some of the other things we've talked about today, is that what it has brought out is the good communities that we have, of people stopping by. There's people that walk by our house every day, walking their dogs, and put our paper on the lawn, on the porch. I had a heck of a time finding it because the guy who delivers the paper never puts the paper on the porch. That was but nobody asked him to do that. Okay, we're coming to the end, and I want to have a couple minutes to discuss the real future. I have one other thing to show you that that I thought was interesting in the sense of the future.
That's gone viral. That's really interesting, isn't it?
What is it?
It's a hologram.
Hologram, yeah.
Of a shark.
Well,
No, that's pretty good.
This was shown to me or given to me by Rich Eaton, who found it. And it's like somebody just said, a hologram. The floor is not wet. Nobody got wet. I don't know. The sounds of that made it sound like it was a surprise and they all saw this. I don't know if it was projected or what else. I know that holograms now are used. You could be talking to somebody and they're really not there. You know, it's the use of laser beams coming in and really creating a 3D image of something. This is probably in the experimental stage, but they're using it more and more. They're using it to put words in people's mouths, all kinds of stuff. So with that, we didn't get a chance at the end to do so much, but we did a lot in the middle, I think, talking, and I think we did a good job today. I think we're getting better at this as we go along. I want to thank Don again for helping with all this stuff for all these sessions. And from my point of view, it's been good. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it all, and I'll miss you all. We'll see you all back at OLLI in the courtyard pretty soon, hopefully.